Welcome to the October 2022 Cannabis Compliance Updates for the Western region. In California, the DCC is proposing changes to the regulations that would adopt a standardized cannabinoid test method for use by all licensed laboratories. The primary change to the regulations would limit applicability of the standardized cannabinoid test method to the testing of dried flower, including pre-rolls. This change and additional modifications proposed by the department are detailed in the notice of further modifications to proposed test of regulations. View the notice of further modifications to proposed text and modified tests of the regulations below. California AG announces new efforts to address unlicensed weed grows. So, a California Attorney General Rob Bonta announced new efforts to address unlicensed marijuana cultivation in the state, saying that the market of illicit weed still outpaces the regulated cannabis industry. Bonta also announced that the Campaign Against Marijuana Planting, CAMP, the annual effort to eliminate illicit cannabis cultivation sites in California, had eradicated nearly 1 million unlicensed cannabis plants this year. Bonta said that the camp had eliminated nearly 1 million illicit cannabis plants in 2022, operating in 26 counties throughout California. The Attorney General also announced that the annual camp program, which typically operates for a period of about 3 months during the marijuana growing season, would be enhanced to include operations to address the unlicensed cannabis market throughout the year. The CAMP program is a multi-agency task force that assembled in 1983 to combat California's illicit cannabis cultivation industry. CAMP's efforts received mixed reviews for California cannabis community. I would say negative reviews from the cannabis community, but anyway. The seasonal camp effort would continue as part of the new year-round EPIC program. EPIC will also investigate crimes including environmental offenses and employment violations against illegal growers. The transition to EPIC follows an announcement last week from the State Department of Fish and Wildlife, CDFW, that California Governor Gavin Newsom has directed the creation of a new multi-agency, cross-jurisdictional task force designed to better coordinate efforts to fight illegal cannabis operations in international criminal organizations. How about you all open up more retail locations and stop going after the unlicensed market? Just my opinion. Anyways. Another one out of California. Cannabis Industry Safety and Health Fact Sheet. So this is from ProCanna. So just some things. The California Department of Industrial Relations Division of Occupational Safety and Health Publications Unit recently published a cannabis industry safety health fact sheet that has been updated as a ProCanna reference document, which is awesome. To summarize, all employers in the California cannabis industry, including those who cultivate, manufacture, distribute, sell, and test cannabis products, must take steps to protect their employees from all health and safety hazards associated with their work. And just so you know, several Cal OSHA regulations apply to workplaces in the cannabis industry. This publication contains links to these regulations and other helpful resources for providing a safe and healthy workplace in the cannabis industry in California. Awesome. And moving on over to Colorado. So a couple of notifications here happening. The MED has issued an informational notification due to the identification of medical cannabis harvest batches produced by WTJ Family Enterprises, doing businesses as WTJ MMJ Supply, that were not tested in accordance to the required testing regulations. Separately, MED is also issuing a health and safety advisory, HSA, due to the identification of potential unsafe levels of total yeast and mold contamination in medical cannabis flower, bud, shake, and trim produced by Beyond Broadway LLC, doing business as Live Well, one of the bigger operators. All right, and we got rulemaking in Colorado. So final adopted rules. So this email is being issued to inform stakeholders. On October 11, 2022, the State Licensing Authority issued an adoptional order for the new permanent rules. Here's an annotated version right here. So almost 500 pages in length. Of course, they lay out all of the fun stuff. Yellow, green, gray, and blue. You can take a look and dive into all those regulations. I know I will be. So this was implemented, the 2022 legislation, and incorporate various stakeholders' recommendations following a series of public work groups. Unless specified in rule, the adopted rules will take effect on December 1st, 2022. So that is right around the corner. Official rule record, the division is finalizing the official rule record pursuant to the requirements of the Administrative Procedure Act. Once finalized, the official rule record will be subject to public inspection pursuant to the Colorado Open Records Act. For questions regarding the status of the rule record, contact Danielle.Henry@state.co.us. So adopted rules were informed by stakeholder contributions in the form of work group participation, oral and written comment submissions. The division held 3 stakeholder work group meetings and received 83 written comment submissions. The below content provides a limited summary of rules updated following the September 30th, 2022 rule hearing. So Senate Bill 22-178, marijuana licenses ability to change designation. Beginning January 1st, 2023, a retail cultivation can receive transfers of medical marijuana for the purposes of changing its designation from medical to retail. Senate Bill 178 provides similar allowances that were passed by the General Assembly in House Bill 21-1216 into permanent rule during the 2021 permanent rulemaking procedures. Amended rules to implement Senate Bill 178 can be found on Rules 5-235, 6-230, and 6-730. House Bill 22-1222. Marijuana responsible vendor designations. Rule adopts that this year implementing the changes adopted in House Bill 1222 is responsible vendor designations. Under the new rules, a person, employee, manager, or controlling beneficiary owner may receive a responsible vendor designation. In addition to a business obtaining and maintaining a responsible vendor designation, please see amended rules 3-505 for the changes to the implemented House Bill 1222. Use by date rules. During the permanent rulemaking hearing, the division represented proposed rules that would require expiration dates for regulated cannabis in the final adopted rules. Expiration dates were not incorporated as previously proposed. Rather, effective January 1st, 2024, all regulated cannabis intended for inhalation must have a use-by date on the label prior to transfer to a regulated cannabis store, patient, or consumer. An existing requirement is currently in Rule 3-1015 for edible marijuana products intended for skin and body use, and audited products. Unlike the initial proposed rules, the adopted rules does not prohibit a store from selling regulated cannabis past its use-by date, but does require the store to notify the patient or consumer if a product is past its use-by date. Additionally, the division intends to monitor data regarding regulated cannabis use-by dates following implementation of these rules and will implement any necessary changes in the future. Amended rules provisions to implement this requirement can be found at Rules 3-1005 and 3-1015. Just another advisory for you all to know in Colorado. The MED has issued a health and safety advisory for SDJ LLC, the Living Rose, due to identification of potential unsafe levels of total yeast and mold and aspergillus on medical cannabis flower. So, Colorado, we have this weird law, if you're not familiar with it. In the past, it was called process validation. With the new regulations from 2022, that's now called reduced testing. And essentially, if you pass the test results from the harvest batch, the exact numbers are escaping me at the moment, but it's something like, I believe like 12 different harvest batches in a 6-week period. Something's telling me that's not 100% right, but a specific number of harvest batches within a specific period, and every single harvest batch that you harvested during that time, if you pass all of your microbials, heavy metals, potency, yada, 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 then you are quote unquote process validated or reduced testing, which means that you do not have to test all of your batches after that. You only need to test one batch a month to stay reduced testing approved or process validated. And when you don't keep your records up to date and when you don't follow this process as you should, then you can kind of skirt the whole testing requirements. And as we can see here, we have a pretty big number of different advisories happening month after month after month. And it's because not every single batch of cannabis has to be tested here in Colorado, which I think is disgusting, but you know. All right, let's switch on over to Montana. So just a really quick update for Montana. So this correction notice pertaining to waste management process revision, 2 minor typos, corrections were made in the rules as amended. Effective date of the amended rules remains September 24th, 2022. So just letting you know if you're in Montana. All right, and switching on over to Nevada. So on Monday, October 10th, the Nevada Cannabis Compliance Board, CCB, sent out guidance regarding applications for consumption lounge agent cards. Below is some additional guidance regarding owners that must apply for an agent card as a prospective owner and submit a complete set of fingerprints. All owners within the ownership structure for the cannabis establishment must be listed if the person owns 5% or greater interest in an entity within the ownership structure. All owners listed on the consumption lounge application must apply for an agent card and submit a complete set of fingerprints. And then additional guidance pertaining to the subject can be found on the consumption lounge's page on the CCB website and within the FAQ section. Another one out of Nevada, guidance on ownership structure for retail or independent cannabis consumption lounges. So it's come to the board's attention that there may be some confusion amongst license holders regarding the implementation of NCCR 5-040 subsection 3H through J, specifically which owners must be listed on the application and correspondingly who must provide agent card portal numbers showing proof of the person has applied for an agent card as prospective owner. Therefore, the board is issuing further clarification. All owners within the ownership structure of the retail consumption lounge or independent cannabis consumption lounge must be listed on the application if the person owns a 5% or greater interest on a fully diluted basis. All owners listed on a retail cannabis consumption lounge or independent cannabis consumption lounge application must apply for an agent card as a prospective owner and submit a complete set of fingerprints. For clarification, go on over to the retail cannabis consumption lounges on the CCB website, and they also have FAQs there for you too. And New Mexico. So a couple of things happening over in New Mexico. So updates and testing requirements reminders. The Cannabis Control Division hopes this email finds you well and is reaching out to provide some updates and reminders related to the testing requirements. So first, we got testing and homogeneity testing. A required testing rules and requirements can be found at 16.8.7 NMAC. Quote, quality control, inspection, and testing of cannabis products, end quote. Currently, certain tests are required prior to the sale of finished cannabis products. These tests include potency, microbiological testing, visual inspection, and residual solvents. For the most up-to-date version of the rules, please visit this website. Batch limits. As a reminder, the division defines a batch of cannabis as, quote, an identified quantity of cannabis no greater than 15 pounds that is the same strain of cannabis that is harvested during the same specific period from the same specific cultivation area and concerning which the same agricultural practices were utilized, including the use of any pesticides. Microbiological testing requirements. As an additional reminder, the division promulgated rules related to microbiological contaminants in March of 2022. While these rules have some minor overlap with the biological contamination rules promulgated by the Department of Health Medical Cannabis Program, there are a few key differences between the two sets of rules. As such, ensure that all samples submitted to licensed cannabis laboratories were being tested for microbiological contaminants listed on the table below, which also can be found at 16.8.7.15 subsection D in MAC. And here is the example of the table that they're referencing. For licensees manufacturing edible cannabis products, you will notice that in Table 2 above, you are required to test for Shiga toxin producing E. coli and other toxins. If the cannabis used in the production of these edibles exceeds a water activity of 0.65 or greater, you must ensure that you are first testing for water activity to determine whether or not you will need to further test for the selected microbials previously stated. And my only update for you out of Oregon, super short and sweet. What did they do? They amend and adopted cannabis and hemp rules to implement 2022 legislation and make technical updates. And they also have the public hearing and notice of proposed rulemaking happening as well. And that was on October 25th. And Utah. We very rarely hear from Utah, but here is a Utah update. So DHHS, Center for Medical Cannabis Program Bulletin on labeling of medical cannabis products containing synthetic or derived ingredients. The DHHS Center has released a program bulletin regarding the labeling of medical cannabis products containing synthetic or derivative ingredients. It is available at the website under the program bulletin, heading at medicalcannabis.utah.gov/resources/program-news. And moving on over to Washington. So, Washington Cannabis, LCB approves social equity rule, flaws and all. And this article is from Harrisburg. The LCB voted and approved a social equity and cannabis rule proposed yesterday morning on October 11th. The board's approval will add Section 570 to Washington Annotated Code Chapter 314-55. There was hopes that the public comment period would yield some meaningful alterations to Section 570, but the rule remains unchanged, and that's a shame. Section 570 will become effective November 12, 2022. There are some significant issues with Section 570 that will create heartburn down the road. Without revisiting them in detail, the most problematic are 1. The restrictions on to whom and where one can sell a Section 570 license. 2, anchoring the license to specific counties. 3, scoring criteria that did not appear to effectively value the most disaffected applicants. And 4, a highly subjective application process in which third-party vendors act as application adjudicators. These aspects of Section 570 does appear to serve a legitimate purpose. Each is counterproductive to its mandate. Given the apparent dissatisfaction of certain stakeholders with the board, paired with the pre-existing issues between them, it seems increasingly likely the lawsuits challenging Section 570 will be filed once the application process is up and running. We will monitor the developments of the Washington Social Equity and Cannabis Rule becoming final and the LCB's progress to rolling out the licensing plan here. All right, and then same thing we just went over. The other one was Harrisburg and their thoughts on the process. And this is just letting you know LCB board action, final rules adopted, social equity and cannabis program and related amendments. And they're there. Awesome. And if you're looking for more cannabis business and compliance information, click this video right here where I provide the federal compliance updates for October 2022 and what Biden really means by pardoning individuals with simple cannabis possession. And don't forget to subscribe here for monthly cannabis compliance updates and weekly tips to improve your cannabis business. Have a good one.